Plug in, log on, let's break it down. Truth ain't scared to be found. Dogma shakes when questions rise. No more fear, no more lies. Cyber deconstruction, let's get real. Faith when challenge starts to peel. If it's built on solid ground, why is it scared to stick around? Sacred text, twisted views. Time to separate lies from truth. Not here to burn, but here to see what survives when the mind breaks free. Deconstruct, analyze, open hearts, open eyes. If it falls, let it be. What remains is meant to be. Cyber deconstruction, let's get real. Faith when challenge starts to peel. If it's built on solid ground, why is it scared to stick around? Not for hate, but for the wise. Truth won't shatter, only lies. Time to start the conversation. Now ain't the time to pretend nothing happened.
Hello, everybody. Just want to make sure I'm coming across clear. Hold on. Okay, I seem to be good on YouTube. So it seems like we are good. We are good. I am bringing up my good friend, Peachy. How you doing, Peachy?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic. So for those who don't know, this is my friend Peachy. We've been friends for about 1.5 years, 2 years now. And reason why I'm late is I just got done spending some time with a really good friend of ours who was passing through town. And in fact, Peachy, this individual wanted me to tell you something real quick. So let me get this brought up. Let me turn off
I'm
YouTube
stressed.
on here real quick. You're stressed.
Well, because I know who. That's cool that they came to see you, though. I knew they were taking a little road trip, but
It is. All right. So let's make sure we got this volume. So for those who don't know, this is our good friend Andy. So it's not going to show up too good for you all. I'll send you this, but here you go.
Peachy, you're goofy.
is that the whole thing?
That's the whole thing. Andy just
can't.
wanted. Yeah, Andy just wanted to let you know you're goofy.
Yeah.
Oh no,
well.
my camera froze. Dang camera.
I was gonna say I didn't know if you could tell.
Yeah, I can say I will. Yeah, I bumped it. I'll get that fixed here in just a minute. Let me get my live back up on YouTube. But yeah, so that's why I'm late. I apologize, everybody. Back up on YouTube. But tonight for every Sunday for Pride, I don't know if Peachy will be hanging out with us every Sunday, but for right now, every Sunday we're going to be running this topic, because it's extremely important. There we go. Because it's extremely important that we run this topic. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, if you do want to join in the conversation on YouTube, because this is streaming to YouTube as well, the link is right here, tinyurl.com/cd-guest. Now, Peachy, if I bring somebody up on Video Ninja, you won't be able to hear them or interact with them. However, if you have a second device, you can also hop into here, and then you can join the conversation there. The only thing you'll need is a pair of headphones for that, and then just mute this account so we don't get an echo.
Okay, sounds good. I was gonna ask that if they join. Oh wait, if they're on YouTube, they have to join through that link, right?
Correct.
Okay. Cool.
Yep. And so that is the plan. So I do have some people that are in there right now, but we're just going to dismiss them right now because I'm not sure. They've been in there when I came home and was setting this up. So I dismissed them just for right now, because I want to, dang live studio. I just want to make sure that they are here for this topic. And not another topic, but the topic today is teach LGBTQIA plus all ages in school. It's extremely important that we teach this, and we're also going to talk about why you don't want to let your kids read the Bible. And the reason why we're putting these two topics together is because oftentimes, and correct me if I'm wrong, Peachy, oftentimes when people get upset about teaching LGBTQIA+, they talk about how it's indoctrination and we're training their kids. But at the same time, you all don't even know the horrific things that are said in your own Bible. For example, you all don't even know or aren't even aware that Lot's daughters, his daughters, got him drunk because they wanted to be impregnated by him. So they got him drunk and they slept with him. Like, these are things that you want in your schools, but you don't want age-comprehensive, age-appropriate books in order to teach children how to be themselves. Is there anything that you like to add to that, Peachy?
No, I think that's correct. Some of those stories are very, very strange, and at the very least are not like child appropriate at the very minimum. So yeah, I think it's a great topic, like conversation topic, like combo.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Peachy and I have ran topics together before. If you go look on my profile page, you'll see a video with the one and only Emma. And if you don't know who Emma is, you all are blessed. But you might learn tonight.
Oh, Emma.
So Matt Vibes over on YouTube is saying, Jesus loves you. Hop in the box. Let's talk about it. I would definitely love to hear your take on it. And then got to make sure. Oh, go ahead.
I would say it's so strange to me when people do like the Jesus loves you thing, because I mean, I hope that they're doing it to be mean, truthfully, and this is why. Because if you say Jesus loves you to me and you think you're being kind, but then if I were to say like Satan loves you, for example, because I worship Satan and I don't actually, but if I were to worship Satan hypothetically and believe that like Satan loves everybody and I said that to you, you would be offended, right? And so it is strange to me. They're saying you have low audio compared to me. It is strange to me that people say Jesus loves you to people and they don't see that as like disrespectful. That's just my hot take.
Mm-hmm. Let me get my audio issues fixed real fast. Bump this up here and then we'll bump. Is that better? Let me know if that is better for my mic audio.
Yeah. See if it's like, is it similar now? Michael, you were the one who commented it, so now you're the chosen one.
All
You're the
right,
one who-
good. All right, good. I'm glad. I don't want to be blowing anybody eardrums out. Um, that's always horrible when that happens. But yeah, so let's go ahead, and I think I might have. So is this you who came in, Peachy? That's on Video Ninja right now, or is that somebody else?
I didn't. I clicked on the. I typed in the link, but I haven't entered a display name. Does it put me in even if I haven't done that part yet? All I did was type in the link.
So
Here, I'll
when you
enter
come
one.
in, yeah. So when you come in, you'll be muted. It'll mute you. So if you put your name in, it helps me know who you are.
But I didn't even do that part yet, so I assume it wasn't me. Because I assume it wouldn't send me in until after that part.
Oh, okay. It's probably not you then. Guest, are you there? Hello, guest. They are not responding. So we'll go ahead and disconnect them. Yeah, I don't know who that is. They didn't respond. So, and the way it works is I'll have to add you to the scene. In order for let me try that again. Hello, guest, are you there? Nope, they're not responding. Yeah, so come on up if you disagree with the topic. What I think we might do is I'll cover the religious stuff. We'll see if Peachy wants to cover the LGBTQIA plus, and we can kind of tag team that together.
It's fine by me.
Oh, we got somebody. Oh, do I have an echo? Oh, that was probably with Video Ninja. Whenever I go on Video Ninja, the reason why you can't hear here is I have to do some muting on this end, so that's why you end up not being able to hear. So that should be better now. Is the echo fixed now? Shouldn't have the echo anymore. Hello, can I get your age?
20.
All right. And are you a Christian?
I believe in it, but I don't go to church and stuff like that.
You don't go to church.
No.
They're still getting the echo. There we go. The echo should be gone now. Let me know if that echo's gone.
Yeah, it's good on mine.
All right. And so what's your view on the topic?
Why shouldn't you let kids read the Bible?
Oh, yeah. Have you heard some of the things that are said in the Bible?
Like the ending of people and stuff like that.
Say that again.
Like the ending of people, I guess you could put it, like just like the graphic stuff they have in it.
Well, let me read something to you. Let me go find. Let's see which one do I want to read. Here we go. So this comes from the Songs of Solomon. This is going to be a conglomerate of verses from chapter 1, verse 13, chapter 2, verse 6, chapter 4, verse 5, chapter 4, verse 16, chapter 5, verse 4, and chapter 7, verses 7 through 8, and chapter 8, verse 10. He shall lie all night between my breasts. His left hand under my head, and his right doth embrace me. Thy young breasts are like two young roos that are twins, which feed among the lilies. Come, blow upon my garden, that the spices thereof may flow out. My beloved put his hand by the hole of the door, and my bowels were moved for him. Thy stature is like a palm tree, and thy breasts are clusters of grapes. I will go up the palm tree and grasp the boughs. I am a wall, and my breasts are as towers. Do you think this is something that's appropriate for kids to read?
Yeah, that was a little much. That was a little much.
That's in the Bible.
So, like, what ages are we talking about for kids?
So when we're talking about this, I'll let Peachy cover that.
I mean, are you talking about for reading the Bible, or are you talking about for the top topic?
The kids part. The don't let kids read the Bible.
Oh, yeah, I don't believe any kids. What age do you think reading about a woman's breasts and doing something sexually with them, when do you think that is age appropriate for kids?
Probably middle school. They can read the Bible, I would say. Because
Wait,
at
wait.
that
So
age, they
you
can understand what it is.
so you think that in middle school, because
Yeah, like
this isn't
13.
like something that's like sex education, right? This is literally talking about sex.
Yeah, but that's not like the whole premise of the Bible.
Wait, wait. Oh, I'm sorry, but do you think this is going to sound outrageous? But hear me out. Do you think
Hmm.
kids should be allowed to watch like corn as long as there's a
Nah,
plot, since it's not the whole content of it?
no, I don't think so. No.
Yeah, right. So like even if there's more to it than just the sexual part, that doesn't mean that we should just like give it to kids, right?
Yeah, but I would also argue it's way more damaging than to watch people engage in an act than just reading it.
Okay, so we can give them like the books that have the corn in them as long as they're in book form.
No, I mean, I just don't think it's harmful if it's like a sprinkle or something that's like kind of like
I don't
lewd
think
or
it's a
something.
sprinkle in the Bible. I would say like the Bible is full of like really graphic content ranging from like sexually
Hmm.
explicit content to just like I said, just like graphic stuff.
Yeah, but like at middle school, I think they would probably still make jokes about it and laugh, but I think they would understand the overall message. Maybe not like a 10-year-old, obviously, but like middle school, I definitely think they're mature enough to understand it.
I, yeah, I just would disagree with that. I think like I would be willing to maybe say like high schoolers, especially like the older ones, like when you're getting close to being an adult. I think middle school is very, very young for that. I think especially because a lot of middle school kids haven't even like been through puberty yet. I think it's just strange, I would say. I'm curious why you think like an 11-year-old is
You're 11 in
okay to
middle
read
school?
about that stuff.
I thought you were like 13 in middle school.
13 would be like the last grade in middle school.
So 11 would be middle school?
Like 11 to 13, I would say, probably maybe 10 to 14 if we're going upper and lower.
Yeah, it's going to depend on like what grade your school starts out. Some of them start in 6th grade, some of them start in 7th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only reason I think it's fine because like I think they would have to have like a parent kind of explain it to him. Maybe probably wouldn't just leave him with the book. Maybe
So why wouldn't we like wait for them to have a better understanding of those kinds of things prior to giving them this kind of content?
because like maybe like a year or two later when they're still technically kids, they can understand it. Like maybe not 12, but like 13, 14, they should definitely be able to read a book with a little bit of stuff in it.
Okay. So now we're like talking like high school.
Nah, 13. Well, yeah, 13 is middle school, 14 is middle school, right?
Mm, wasn't for me.
Well, yeah,
So, so
13. I think they should be able to read it.
so wait, you're okay with 13-year-olds talking
Yeah.
about groping a woman's breast?
Yeah, they talk. Oh, when I was 13, I talked about stuff like that.
Oh, but what you do though, and talk about with your friends and family is one thing. We're talking about educators teaching this.
But wouldn't this be in like a religious setting, like church, not necessarily like school?
Yes.
Is it current? Well, do we currently not have a political party trying to put Bibles in the classroom and trying to push that the Bible be read in the classroom, which means that these Bibles would be in your student's desk potentially, and they able to read it without any context.
Yeah.
Well, if that were to happen, I would definitely advocate to wait at least middle school or 7th grade whenever you're 13. Definitely not elementary though.
Okay, so my question for you then is, do you hold that same view when it comes to teaching age-appropriate LGBTQIA plus topics?
Yeah, when kids are going through puberty, so like 13, I think that'd be a good time to talk about it. Not earlier though.
Well, how about if we're talking about like with gender identity and this I'll let Peachy cover here with gender identity.
Yeah, I mean, so Cyber mentioned it, like age appropriate content, right? So all we're asking is, would you be okay with the LGBTQIA plus topics being taught at a, this is the key part, age appropriate level
Yeah.
to all the kids? So you're like automatically jumping to like not till they're 13 for some reason, and I'm not sure why. Why can't we teach age appropriate content about LGBTQIA to younger kids?
Because I didn't really think about girls like that until I hit puberty, like around 13. Like
Wait,
before
so
that,
what do
it
you mean
wasn't.
think about girls like that? Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, like I wasn't like attracted to like. Well, obviously I liked girls when I was younger, but like when I was 13, I actually like liked them. Like I wanted to talk to them.
Can I ask you, do you know what the T stands for?
Trans.
Trans, yeah. And so what does trans like being trans have to do with like liking girls like that, to use your words?
Like you're asking like the. It doesn't really have a correlation.
Yeah, it doesn't, right? So that's my point, because you're saying that it shouldn't. So I asked you, like, let's track the conversation, right? I asked you why we need to wait till we're 13 to learn about something like this, and you said because I didn't like girls like that until around 13. So you're talking about attraction, and so I'm
Yeah.
asking you what being trans has to do with attraction, since you're saying we can't learn about being trans until we start being attracted to people. So what
Okay.
I'm trying to understand the correlation.
Yeah. So again, like with the whole trans thing, you would be doing that to achieve the opposite sex, right? Whatever you want to go
No.
to, you will be wanting to get the opposite of that, right?
No, so that's not what being trans is. And you're not, when you're trans, you're not doing something that you're not, you said doing that. I don't know what that is, but you're not doing something to
transitioning.
achieve what?
Yeah, like when you become trans, you're transitioning to get the other
No,
the different gender, right?
no. So trans doesn't mean transitioning. Trans
Uh,
means transgender.
Yeah, so there's going to be two terms here. We're going to have transgender and cisgender. Cis just means same side. Trans means other side, right? So, so like I was born a male. I was born a male. I identify as a man. When I was a child, I identified as a boy. So I am cisgendered, right? So somebody who, their gender doesn't, cohere with their census gender, doesn't cohere with what their body is, they would be transgendered. Does that make sense?
yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and not everybody who is a transgendered person, not everybody seeks to actually go through like gender affirming surgeries. Some of them, for some people, it's just being acknowledged as the gender that they are. That's enough. Some people go as far as needing the gender affirming surgeries, and it's anywhere from in between. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think like it's reasonable to teach kids about gender prior to 13?
Nah, I don't because I think it would just cause a lot of confusion.
Okay,
Like
so hold on. So you don't think we should teach about gender at all until you've hit 13?
the LGBT, yeah.
Okay, no, but gender. I'm asking about gender. You don't think we should teach about gender until we hit 13?
No, I mean we don't have to teach gender at all. We kind of just know.
We know, so we do teach kids about gender, right? We do.
I mean,
Right?
subcon-
How
yeah,
how
I
does
guess,
it how do kids learn like boy, girl, man, woman, and like what that means?
their parents probably.
Okay, so like yeah, you might learn,
it-
but typically actually I was gonna say parents don't necessarily know, like they're not qualified to like make those give that kind of education necessarily. People actually learn a lot about gender identity through experiencing, right, other people. But one of the things that I think is important is that in our society we tend to enforce like cis. I would call it cis normativity. It's where we assume like your gender based on the sex you were assigned at birth, and so I think it's important that we start teaching kids at younger ages that there are people who don't fit inside that gender norm, because if we don't teach about that, they're going to grow up thinking like there's boys and girls or men and women and nobody falls outside of that, and of course we know that's not true.
Oh, so you just want to do it to include people, not necessarily like change people's mind?
Yeah, we're not trying to
Yeah.
change any, like, I'm not trying to tell a kid if there's a cis kid, like I'm like Cyrus said, like we're both cisgender, right? If
Hmm.
I like am teaching kids about this, it's not with the goal of change. You can't change them anyway. You can't make a cis kid trans, you can't make a trans kid cis. That's not a thing. It's just their internal gender identity that they have in their brain. You can't change that. All we're doing is educating kids about this so that they're aware of people that either aren't like them, or maybe they can assign a word to themselves, because a lot of times you have trans kids and they don't even know they're trans because they don't know what the word trans means. They don't know,
Hmm.
they don't have a word to associate with themselves. So all we're doing is educating on the fact that there are different people that exist that associate differently with gender. That's it.
Yeah, but before, okay, so we're talking elementary school, which is like 10 down. At
Mhm.
that time, if somebody were to tell me about this, I probably wouldn't even understand it. So it's like kind of pointless.
Sure. Did you
Hmm.
understand everything you were ever taught in elementary school?
No.
No, right? So like, does that mean we shouldn't teach you something just because there might be some kids that don't understand certain parts of it?
Not necessarily, but this is
Right,
like,
right. And also I think it's important again to go back to talking about age appropriate topics, right? If we were to teach somebody about what it means to be trans, like when they're like younger, like 7-year olds, for example, we're not gonna teach them like the intricacies and the scientific aspects, right? When you were younger and you were learning about like how Christopher Columbus, quote unquote, discovered America, which let's not get into the validity of that, right? But when we're learning about that when we're a kid, right, we're being taught this little rhyme like about sailing the ocean blue in 1492 or whatever the hell the date was, right? You're taught it in once again like an age appropriate way, and like a way that as a kid you can digest, and then as you get older you get stuff added to it, right? You go into history classes in middle school and then in high school where they teach you a more intricate level of what that actually meant. So it would be the same thing with this, where we would expand upon it as you get older and can comprehend more, but in the younger ages we would just teach it in a way that kids can understand. It would be very, very basic stuff.
Like for example, we do know through the American Pediatric Association that children know their gender identity by age 7. They know it. They start developing that awareness at age 3. So, like for example, here's a book. Oh, you guys aren't going to be able to see it, but it's called "They, She, He, Me, Free to Be." And I'm just going to read a small excerpt from this. I'm not going to read the whole book, just a small excerpt for this. But this is something that is age appropriate for kindergartners and first graders. And the way it starts out is, when you were born, you were given a name and a pronoun, probably he or she. As you get older and know yourself more and more on the inside, some of the ideas of she and he may fit you, and some of them may not. Ideas about he and she are very strong right now. Many people believe he means only certain things and she means only certain things. These ideas affect what people think about everything: how you dress, how you wear your hair, how you express the spirit of who you are, even what colors you like. People can think they know what your pronoun is based on the ideas about she and he. This is a way of only looking at the outside of a person and not the inside. On the inside, you may not feel like he or she at all. Maybe they feels the most free, or you may feel like both she and he, but mostly you probably just feel like yourself. The inside part is the most important part because there is no one else like you in the world. This is why everyone should be free to be exactly who they are on the inside. And it goes on, but as you notice in this book, it mentions that it's perfectly okay, and as you read the book, it's perfectly okay to be he, to be she, to be what you up to this time were raised to believe you were. However, it's also okay that if you are being called he and that just doesn't quite feel right, that's okay as well, right? So it's taking both sides of the street and saying it's okay to be you. What you are is what matters. Is this something that you think would be okay to teach?
I will say for specific cases, yes, but my only issue is that it would cause kids who didn't have um where they thought they were like in a different body, I feel like it would cause them to think that they wanted to, you know, and then the parents can't be like, well, that's not true because they would be like denying their kid of being them, you know. I just feel like it would cause too much confusion at that age.
Okay, so go ahead, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
So do you not think then that we're confusing the kids who aren't cisgender right now because we're refusing to teach about their identities? Wouldn't it be, I think it would be the most beneficial to everybody to teach about everybody's identities, right? We wouldn't be just teaching about trans identities. We would be teaching about all identities. And I think during elementary school is an excellent time for kids to explore these kinds of things. I don't think it's wrong if there was a kid, because just to be clear, in elementary school, if a kid were to say, hey, I think I actually would like to be called he instead of she, who cares, right? If a kid wants to be called he and that happens for a year and then they go, you know what, actually, I do think I want to be called she, who cares? That doesn't do anything. That doesn't impact them in any kind of negative way. And in fact, it's actually, it's called supporting them, right? We're encouraging them to try to figure it out. And then they figure it out when they're young, and then they're not an adult, like 30 years old, realizing like maybe this identity people have forced upon me my whole life isn't right, right? All we're saying is to teach about everybody and include everybody so that everybody can figure it out.
Okay,
And in fact, real quick, well, and just real quick, let's get, so I just read a passage, and let me see if I can drop this background real quick. You know, I'm not going to try that. It's going to mess things up. But let's get ones in the chat. If the little excerpt that you heard me read, and you tell me if you would want your kids to hear that in school at age-appropriate levels, and continue on with the book on both TikTok and YouTube. Let's get ones in the chat if you support this book.
All right, and I also have a rebuttal for Peachy.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you said another thing about the pronouns. So I really don't, the LGBTQ, I can agree with that on a certain level because there is kids that will know at that age, right? But the pronouns I have a bigger problem with because everybody's not going to call them by, they, or whatever. And sometimes it happens by accident, and that will cause them to get mad, you know?
Okay. So hold on. Let's slow down because I think we're going into a different conversation. The conversation here is really about teaching like LGBTQIA plus in schools. The conversation you're headed to is people misgendering somebody. I will address this, but I would like to stay on the actual topic. And what I would say is I don't know if you've ever experienced this. When I was growing up, actually had a pretty deep voice. I spent a lot of time being really insecure about my voice, and I trained my voice to be higher. The voice you hear right now is the higher version of my voice. I trained my voice to be this high, and it's not even high, right? And so when I was a kid, if people heard my voice, I would get told that I sounded like a man, for example, as like a 9-year-old, okay? And so yeah, I've been misgendered is what I'm saying, right? People have used the wrong pronouns for me. And did it make me mad? Most of the time, no. But maybe there were times where it did, right? There are cis people who get mad when they get misgendered too. Everybody gets upset if they think somebody called them sir when they're a ma'am and vice versa. This isn't exclusive to trans identities. And that's really all there is to it. If somebody gets upset because you call them the wrong pronouns, you can just apologize and say sorry, and then ask them what their pronouns are. Or if you want to not have them get mad at you, ask them their pronouns before you use pronouns for them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not really
and-
diving into it, but yeah.
Yeah, and part of this as well is as we're going through this education, because it's twofold, right? Part of it is teaching the kids how to approach when they are misgendered. How do we deal with this? How do we take corrective steps? How do we correct people? Because what we have right now, and probably what you're referring to, are some videos and stuff that you've seen on YouTube.
Yeah.
And what it is that we have generations of people. We have at least 2 to possibly the end of a 3rd generation today that has been raised without having this knowledge. And these are individuals who grew up well into their adulthood, not having an understanding, not having the language on how to communicate how they actually feel on the inside about who they actually are. And now here we are in 2025, and now we have an understanding of how this works. We have a way for people to actually be able to express themselves. And it is the case that these people have had kind of a liberating thing on being able to express who they are. But they haven't been able to grow up where they've been able to correct people's and stuff like this. And so it's a transitioning period. And so by teaching this at a young age, we can prevent that, and we can teach people the proper way to do corrections when they are misgendered, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. I agree. I just think it should be pushed back a little later when people are going to actually have to go in the real world. Because, like, at kids, if they come across a person who's trans, their parents can tell them, hey,
No, they can't.
sometimes people,
Mm-mm.
want to do something. What?
No, their parents can't, and this is why
Why can
parents are very, very uneducated when it comes to this stuff, and they're going to teach them the wrong things. For example, when you came in here, it appeared, and I could be wrong, but it appeared based on your rhetoric that you believed that trans meant transitioning, right? And I assume you're an adult, right? Which
Yeah, I'm
which
Tony.
means you could potentially have children. And so if you, an adult, believe that trans means transitioning, then when a kid, like if you were to have a kid and they see a trans person and you're trying to explain to them, you would say, oh, that's a transitioning person, which may not be true, right? Trans people aren't always transitioning. And so it's that kind of misinformation that's actually not going to help. And I do think we might get to a point in our society, if we do include this education into schools and we make this a largely accepted thing in our society, that we would maybe get to a point where, generally speaking, everybody does pretty much know, and then it would be more reasonable for, like, parents, for example, to have enough of an education to teach this. But right now we're not at that point. Most adults that I've spoken to about this don't have enough of an education to be teaching this without teaching it incorrectly, and I don't think that's helpful.
Yeah, I see. I literally understand every point that y'all have made. I just think elementary school is just too early. Like, I
Why?
doubt that they're, I just
Yeah.
doubt that they'll run into a trans person like that. Like, middle school,
They
for
they
sure.
might
Well,
be trans themselves. Like Cyber
mhm.
said earlier, kids know their gender identity by age 7. We know that some of them figure it out earlier than that, but by age 7, statistically, you know your gender identity, which means if there are trans kids, they know, even if they don't have a term for it, by the age of 7, which is elementary school, they know that they're different, quote unquote, at the very least. Why wouldn't we want them to, like, have an understanding of where they might fit?
I, I just don't think it should be taught at such a young age.
But you don't have a
Well,
reason.
yeah, you
I
don't
get
have a
it.
reason. You just have feelings and vibes. So, like, what harm does it cause to well, let me ask you a question first.
Confusion.
Well, let me ask you a quick question. How do you know, like, when you were a child, how did you know that you were a boy?
Genitalia.
You knew just based off your genitalia.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, like, when I think about it, back when I was younger, I can't explain how I knew I was a boy, and I can't explain how I know I'm a man. I can't explain it. There's no words to describe it. I just know that I'm a man. I just know it, right? Never once have I woke up in the morning, looked down, saw my genitalia, and been like, yep, I'm a man. Or when I was younger, I never looked at it and said, yep, I'm a boy. Never crossed my mind. It is just an innate part of who I am, being a boy when I was a child, and now I'm a man. And I'm fairly certain that if you were to go and ask anybody, it's not because they look at their genitalia and that's what tells them what gender they are.
That should be, though. That's the
That's not
end all be all.
correct. No.
How is that not correct?
So genitalia is a sex characteristic, and it's actually only one of the sex characteristics, right? So there's various sex characteristics that all combine to ultimately make what we would consider your biological sex. Genitalia is just the thing that doctors use to assign your sex at birth, because statistically speaking, most of the time they'll get your biological sex, right, based on external genitalia, and it's really easy to look at it and make that determination most of the time. And then what we've done as a society is say, if you have this sex, assigned at birth, then we're going to associate that with this gender. When the reality is that gender and sex aren't the same. And so it's not appropriate to say, well, you have this genitalia, so that's what you are, especially because we have people who have like ambiguous genitalia or who don't have
Those are
anything at
outliers. I
all.
don't really want to get into that.
Huh?
Well, let me
Those are
ask
like
you.
outliers.
Well, let me ask you a question right now. So let's say you got in a horrific car accident and you wake up and they had to remove your genitalia as a result. Would you stop being a man?
No.
You'd still be a man, right?
Yeah.
So genitalia is not the thing that defines whether or not you're a man, right?
That's not what you asked me earlier. You said, how did I know? I said I knew because of my genitalia. That I didn't say that's what made me a man.
Okay, I think he was. That's what he was getting at, right? That's
Yeah.
If that's how you knew, then that implies then that's what made you it, right? So I think those are like the same thing. It's kind of a semantics issue here, but the reality is that if that's not what made you a boy back then and is making you a man now, then it wouldn't be how you know. PJ, I've never had menopause, so does that make me male? What?
Right.
Sorry, I shouldn't look at the comments, but that one was so
CJ,
bad.
you're goofy.
The point is, I will say, Gus, sorry, you don't have a name on here, so I'll just call you Gus. But my nephew, for example, I have proximity to a young child because my nephew he's 6 now. And he, for a really long time, because he has male genitalia, he assumed everybody had male genitalia. So when we would ask him what girls have, he would say they have a penis. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that online. He would say that they have.
I don't care. Look, here's a nice thing about here's a nice thing about TikTok now, at least in the US. If this live gets taken down, I get a video that says what we did wrong. So hopefully this means these goofy words that we use go away. So I don't care.
Yeah, I never believed in that stuff anyway. I only did it because I was trying to respect other people's platforms to be so real. But anyway, so yeah, he said that everybody had penises because like he had that and he assumed everybody did. So we would ask him, what do boys have? And he would say that. And then we'd ask him, what do girls have? And he would say also that, like they have penises. So lots of young kids do not know or think that they are a certain gender because of their genitalia. In fact, we know that's not how almost anybody really defines it. We think that's the case as adults. We think, oh, well, I had this genitalia. But nobody, when you're like 6 years old, you're not looking down and saying, oh, I must be a boy because I have that. That's not actually how it happens. In fact, what we do in society when we're kids, we're experiencing people all of the time. And we start creating what are called schemas in our brains that tell us we start making basically a brainstorming cloud of what it means to be a certain gender based on what we see and experience in other people. So we meet a girl or a woman and she has these characteristics. And so then because she has those characteristics, we put that into our schema of girl or woman. And we do the same thing for boy or man. And then if we meet non-binary people, etc. And so we start creating these schemas in our brains, and everybody has individual ideas in their brains about what a man or a woman might look like or act like or speak like, and they're all really based on like how we're experiencing those people individually in the world. And so that's how kids do it as well, right? They don't do it based on genitalia, because if they did, right, when you were 6 years old, if you met somebody at school, how did you determine if they were a boy or a girl?
Probably by the way they were dressed.
By the way they were dressed, right? So
Yeah.
It wasn't their genitalia. It wasn't something about their biology, right? Clothing isn't biological. It was about the way they presented themselves, right?
Yeah, he had asked me personally though, like how did I know?
Yeah, I know. We've moved on from that question.
Yeah.
I'm just asking you more things so we can discuss this, right? Because kids don't base gender on genitalia, and most people don't, right? When you see somebody in public, you're most of the time not going to know what genitalia they have, and you're internally in your brain going to assign them a gender identity based on what you perceive and how it fits into the schema in your brain about a certain gender, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And so these are reasons why we want to teach. And again, we've been talking a lot about the T portion, but the reason why we also want to teach the LGB and the QIA part is because it is the case that we exist. I'm bisexual myself. If Peachy wants to share that's up to her.
I'm also bisexual.
So we're both bisexual, right? And it is the case that like growing up in high school, I grew up, I graduated high school in the early 2000s, and it is the case that there was a lot of like I had to stay closeted because there was a lot of bullying going on. I live, for those who've been in my lives for a while, I live in a very Mormon-centric community. And it is the case that if I would have came out and those who did come out were bullied, right? And so hopefully by teaching this, all of this at a young age, what we have seen in school districts where we are teaching this at a young age, we see that bullying is greatly reduced, right? It's greatly reduced. People are more understanding, they're more accepting of it. And I think in order to move forward as a society, it is important that we teach this.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the teaching part. I think we just agree to disagree on the age, but yeah, we should definitely be taught because it's a thing. It's happening.
I don't want to agree to disagree on the age. I don't like agreeing to disagree on anything. If I'm being honest, I'm just not that person. That's not my vibe. It's like one of my least favorite sayings. A lot of times people say it about facts. Obviously, that wasn't a fact.
No.
These things are not as bad. But yeah, I don't agree to disagree on these things because I think it's important that we do these things. And like Cyber said, we've seen in places where they're already teaching this to younger kids that it reduces bullying, which can save people's lives, right? This is a serious
It
topic
does.
in reality, right? There are kids that kids in this community statistically are more likely to unalive themselves due to the just societal unacceptance in society. I don't know how to call that, or like bullying, those kinds of things, not being accepted by your family or by your church or whoever else. They're more likely to remove themselves from this planet because of things like this. So I think it's a really important topic, and I don't want to just like agree to disagree on the age when it's saving people's lives.
Well, I have a
Yep. And the
question.
reason
Did
why, oh, go ahead.
did you personally, Peach, experience any like trans kids in elementary school? Because I didn't.
I don't know if I did. So when I was younger, I am in my 30s. And so when I was in elementary school, it was the 90s for the most part, and then early 2000s. So this kind of stuff, I can tell you I experienced trans people for sure in middle school. The first time I knew somebody was trans was in middle school, but in elementary school, I don't know, because we didn't talk about it and we didn't get educated on it. And I didn't even know what those words meant. But I'm sure there were. I bet you if I went back and looked at like my classmates from elementary school, I bet you some of them are trans. And we know that if somebody is trans as an adult, it's because they were trans as a kid. But I did experience people who were of different attraction levels. Like myself, I was a bi kid. I've always been bisexual, and not in like a sexual, like people get weird because the sexual term is in it, but bisexual or homosexual, just like heterosexual, it's not just about sexual attraction, right? Like when you're a kid and you're in elementary school, like I had crushes when I was in elementary school, right? So I was definitely a bisexual kid, and there were definitely gay kids and there are definitely straight kids, even when they're in elementary school. And I think that's important that these kids understand that, one, it's normal, and two, that they should be accepted and everybody around them should accept them.
Yep. And I was just looking up too. So we're talking about how children, well, we as people know our gender identity by age 7. That's when we know it. Again, between the ages 3 to 7 is when we're learning it. It turns out that bullying and getting set in ways starts at about the age of 8. So between the ages of 8 to 12 is when children are starting to get set in their ways of bullying. This is why normally past the age of 8, going into middle school and high school, where children start to form like cliques, is because these are groups that they associate with because they've got set in their ways and similar things. And so, again, this is why it's extremely important to start teaching this at a younger age, so that, because if we wait longer, the bullying mindset is already set in, and it's going to be difficult for this individual to get out of the mindset that people part of the LGBTQIA plus community are less than, or that, this is a religious live. I'm a religious debater. I'm a deconstructionist. So that when it comes to people that are religious, aren't thinking that these people are just automatically, that we are just automatically going to hell, right? And that's why all of this is important to teach this at a younger age.
Yeah, I was just coming from experience. I don't remember. Yeah, I really can't remember seeing anybody like that until like middle high school. That's why
Well,
I
that's because
think
we're closeted. That's because we're closeted, and a lot of times we don't know how to express things. So I'm bisexual, but the first person that I ever had a crush on was another boy. It was I was 6 years old, 7 years old, had a crush on a boy, and I didn't know what to think about it. I didn't know how to express it. I just didn't know. And again, I grew up in an Orthodox Jewish family, and I remember talking to my dad about it, and it was just an immediate negative shutdown of it, right? And so I grew up afraid. Um, because again, there's religious implications that I was told. We went right to the Torah, and these were things that like from my own family getting bullied over, right? So this forces us to stay closeted, and it forces us to say things like, well, okay, I don't have a crush on him. I just he's just going to be my best friend, right? And we shouldn't be forcing children to do that. Children should be able to express themselves in a healthy way. And I remember when my I have there's me, and then I have a younger sister, and then I have another younger brother who's 3 years younger than me. I remember watching him when he was right around the same age, telling my dad about a girl that he had a crush on, and my dad, had like a sigh of relief about that because he was worried this thing was genetic, and was worried that like the whole family was like infected with it. Well, I mean, it is genetic, but I mean, was thinking that like the whole family had like an infection of it, and that's not the case. My brother's straight. And this is why it's important to teach it so that we as parents can be educated on it, and we can help our children as they navigate their childhood as well.
so. Like, what grade were you thinking? Like fifth or?
Um, all ages. All ages. There's age appropriateness at all ages. So, like for example, do you remember like at a young age in kindergarten or first grade, you'd have like Mother's Day coming around, right? Mother's Day or Father's Day is coming around, and do you remember making like little Mother's or Father's Days cards for your parents?
Yeah.
Right. So when we do those, it is the case that there are some children who have two moms or two dads, right? Some children may only have a mom or a dad, right? It's being all inclusive. And so when Mother's Day comes around, instead of just having the option of having a Mother's Day card, it is the case that some parents have two mothers. So maybe they have a card that has two mothers on it. Maybe it's a case that they have two dads, and one of those dads is, well, both of them really are, because I'm egalitarian, so I believe that, it's equality in the household, but that we have, dads on there. Maybe we show where we have transgendered individual on these cards, right? Representation across the board at all ages.
Bro, I'm so close to like being like agreeing with you. It's just that I just know for a fact if that were to happen, a lot of kids would be just claiming things that aren't necessarily true, and then the kids that are actually dealing with it, they
Wait,
what?
you think we like this? Like you think this is something you think this is something that like we wish upon people, that we want to teach children that it's okay to be somebody that you're not?
I just think it's going to cause a lot of
Wait,
confusion.
hold on. So like I have a question though. So when I was a kid, because nobody taught me that I could be anything but straight, even though I very clearly liked girls and boys, I told people I was straight for a really long time, and that wasn't true, right?
Mhm.
Why is that not an issue? Why is it not okay that I was running around saying that I was straight when it wasn't true? Is that not an issue?
No, it is.
It is, right? So like if we're why are we worried about teaching LGBTQIA plus that some kids might run around saying they're this thing when they're not. Because the reality is, most of the time, they may be saying it because they think they are. They might be exploring. And once again, I don't understand the harm, because there's nothing. That is like the best age to do it, right? When you're in elementary school, you're not dating people, and you're not doing any kind of, like, when it comes to the trans topic, again, you're not doing any kind of actual like physical things to your body. You're not getting surgeries, any of that. So I think being in elementary school is the best time to learn about all these identities and then explore them and then figure out the one that fits you best. I don't see the harm in that. I'm having difficulty
Mm.
understanding where you see the harm in that, and how you don't associate that with people identifying as cis or straight when they're not.
In fact, I have a daughter who's a tomboy, right? Tomboy. You try putting her in a dress, and she's going to throw a fit. She wants nothing to do with dresses, nothing to do with skirts. She wants to be out there playing with the boys, right? But she knows she's a girl. It's never been a question for her whether or not she's a girl. She just wants to do what the guys are doing. And this is what's important. Again, it's all about letting children be children, not forcing them into a category, letting children be children, letting children get messy, make mistakes, figure out who they are.
Yeah, I just don't think children are supposed to be figuring out who they are. They're supposed to be kids. Middle
Yes, they
school,
are.
maybe.
They
That's what,
are.
wait, so let kids be kids, right? So
Yeah, they
let
shouldn't be
wait,
worried
wait,
about
wait. So
gender.
let trans kids be trans kids. Let gay kids be gay kids. Let bi kids be bi kids. Let asexual kids or aromantic kids or any other pansexual kids be those kids. Why are we saying kids are supposed to be kids, but only if they're cis and straight?
No, those kids are supposed to be kids too. It's just
Yeah. So why can't we teach them about themselves, like, and their families, like we teach cis heterosexual kids about themselves and their families and their straight cis families?
I think wait, what is that? Whatever. Yeah, I think that would just be come down to the parent. Like you would just have to come to your parent and tell them that you don't feel like who you are.
Why?
So
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you have kids? I don't
No,
remember if you answered this. You don't?
nah, I'm fine.
Okay, I was going to say, if you did have kids, like I wouldn't say do it here on live. I don't want you doing this with your children on live. But I promise you, if you were to call one of your kids over right now and you were to ask them if, like, they were a boy or a girl, they'd give you a straight answer. Like they don't even think about it. The ones that would hesitate are those who, when they see what the idea of a boy is and they don't quite fit in that category, they don't have a way to explain it, but they know they just don't fit. These are the children, because they don't have the vocabulary, they don't know how to explain it. These are the ones that you're going to get like and they don't know, because they don't know how to explain themselves. But again, if we introduce this into a curriculum, they would have a better understanding, a better way to express themselves. And we can not only help them be educated so they can be more, have a better self-esteem about themselves because they know who they are, but we can reduce bullying and build up a better society for our future, for our grandkids.
Okay, so would you be fine if it was like a thing where you had to um include yourself? Like it wasn't just like everybody has to sit through it in middle school, elementary school, I mean?
Wait, say that
Everybody
I feel
again?
like
should
some
do it.
parents wouldn't want their kids to learn that in elementary school.
Do you think it'd be okay if I said I don't want my kids learning about straight people? I don't want my kids to learn about cis people. I only want my kids to learn about trans people and gay people in school. So
But that's the norm
I'm
though.
gonna opt my kids out of learning anything that has to do with cis straight
Yep.
people.
And I'll
Is
be
that okay?
right back. Speaking of my daughter, she's giving me a call, so I will be right back.
Okay.
So to your point, it would be different if the norm would to be like
Why are you appealing to the norm right now? Like
yeah,
why
because that's the thing.
why are
Because
we
the
saying,
norm
oh, because it's normal?
yeah, because the norm is that like boys are boys and girls are girls. That's why I'm saying some
Boys are boys and
parents
girls are girls. Nobody's saying they're not.
yeah, but you're going around teaching kids that they can be something other, you
No,
know?
we're not, right? So when I'm talking about trans, this is again why I don't think that just any random adult can just teach their kids about this topic, because you respectfully are very uneducated about what it means to be trans, right? We're not telling boys that they can be girls and girls that they can be boys. A trans person has always been the gender that they are. A trans woman was a trans girl, and she's been a girl forever. People might have called her a boy. People might have told her she was a boy. She might have thought she was a boy, but she's been a trans girl the whole time. Okay, so even that rhetoric is incorrect, right?
I disagree.
So you can't disagree on facts. That's again one of those things. Like, you know how you said agree to disagree earlier. This is something that is legitimately a fact. So you don't get to agree or disagree on this.
All
This
right,
is a
so
fact.
to
Okay.
make it clear, you're saying that if a kid is feeling uncertain, he at that moment would be a trans woman or
No.
a trans girl.
No,
That's what you said. You said
I
that
didn't
at
say
that.
any. When did I say the word uncertain?
No, you're
When did I
saying
say
that. Okay, so repeat what you said.
So I said a person who is trans does not change their gender.
Yep.
They do not change their gender. They may have been told, like a trans woman when she was a kid, she may have been told she was a boy. She may have been told, or she may have even thought in her brain she's a boy because that's what everybody told her. But this entire time, her gender identity has actually been girl and then woman.
Yeah, but she was she would be born a boy though.
No, she wasn't born a boy. She was assigned male at birth. That's a very important distinction. Again, sex and gender are not the same.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The sex would still be a boy.
Okay, so boy isn't a sex, boy is a gender.
So would you prefer me to say male? Like,
Yeah, male is
okay,
different
so yeah,
than
he
boy.
would still be a male though.
Yes, so that's not changing gender, right? She's trans women, to be clear, trans women, trans girls are still male. Their sex is still male. In most cases, sometimes they're like intersex or whatever else, but their sex is still male. That doesn't mean their gender isn't girl. Those are two different things. Your sex is what's biological, right? So I think we're missing each other here because I don't think you know the difference between gender and sex. So sex is like male or female, and then we have intersex people that fall somewhere typically in between male or female. But sex is going to have to do with your biological characteristics. So the doctor will assign you a sex at birth. So most people are going to be assigned male or female at birth based on what they most closely, their genitalia most closely associates with. In reality, biological sex is actually a lot more complicated because bodies are complicated, right? So for example, like your external genitalia is how your doctor determines your sex. So if you have a vagina or a penis, basically, which some people have both or neither or something ambiguous, but for the most part, right, that is what you have. We also have internal genitalia, which would be like ovaries and a uterus, for example. That's an internal genitalia thing that doctors aren't looking at when you're born. So sometimes people might have like a penis on the outside, but then they might have like an ovary on the inside, right? Your hormone balance is something that also defines your biological sex as well. So these are just examples of ways that your biological sex is determined, right? When it comes to gender is your identity that's associated with like how you fit into society's the way you categorize society, like genders in society, and how you fit within that would be how your gender identity, how you personally feel you fit within that would be how your gender identity is determined. So your gender isn't a biological thing. We don't pass on gender biologically.
See, I understand everything you said, but as a kid, I would be completely lost. That's exactly why I don't think we should be
Okay,
teaching
so
kids.
yeah, and I just explained it to you as an adult, right? I wouldn't explain it like that to a 6-year-old, right? We've talked about this entire time. We've said it multiple times to you already that it would be age appropriate. It would be at a level that they can understand. So we wouldn't go into this deep, complex discussion about biology and sex characteristics
how would
with
you
a
word it?
6-year-old.
How would we word it?
Yeah, like the book.
Wait.
The what?
So would you just like go and read the book to them? The book that you had read earlier?
So again, this would start like, so for example, if they're going into preschool, we'd have this in preschool, right? Age appropriate, age comprehensive. Preschool, sometimes it's just as simple as when we're doing allowing the children to do coloring. Sometimes it is something as simple as giving them a wide variety that shows the entire community, right? Having them exposed to that. And then again, this is one book, but there's other age appropriate books that can be read. And those would just be rotated within the reading schedule, right? So we're not under no circumstances are we saying like only these kind of books. It would be these type of books would be rotated within their reading schedule, right? And again, it'd be again books that we currently read that cover a wide variety of topics, and these books would just be rotated into that.
All right. So my final thing to say is, if it's like, I'm just assuming that you guys are telling the truth. So if it's scientifically backed up that kids at the age of 7 like can determine that they're different, I 100% agree that they should be taught that. But I just don't think it should be like in a super deep level, which y'all have already agreed to. So at
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
7, that's
age
It wouldn't make
appropriate.
sense to do that. Yeah, it wouldn't even make sense, right? The level that we're speaking to you at wouldn't make sense to speak to a 7-year-old at, right? I talk to my nephew like twice a week and he's 6 and I can't talk to him like this, but you're an adult, so I'm going to talk to you like an adult. But yeah, we fully agree. Like we're not going to teach them like high school level or adult level conversation when they're 6. Nobody's saying that.
Yep, like for example, when it comes to, because the big thing that we get, especially when we're talking about the LGB, is a lot of people think we're just talking about like sex, because again, the sexuality is in there. The only time that like that would even be really discussed is in health class, age appropriate health class, right? So at the health class where we understand that children are at an age where, hey, we need to start telling them about condoms and birth control. We would also talk about PrEP and other things concerning the children that are part of the LGB and part of the QIA as well. We'd be teaching all this stuff. When it comes to the asexual, as part of the sex training, we would be saying, hey, there are going to be some people who just aren't interested in having a relationship. They're just not interested at all. Like they might be okay with having like a relationship with someone, but the idea of sex isn't even on their radar, not even interested in it. And that's okay. And by teaching these topics, again, age appropriate, hopefully we can teach people that, hey, I'm dating somebody who is asexual. They're not interested in having sex at all. And that's okay. And you have a better understanding of why they're not interested in it versus turning it internal on yourself and wondering, what am I doing wrong? And this causes you to either intentionally pressure them into doing something they don't want to do, or maybe because you don't have an understanding, again, because you think it's wrong on you, you're guilt tripping them into doing something that's just not who they are. And so again, all of this education is geared towards making a better, healthier society where everybody can feel accepted. They can have a boosted self-esteem about themselves, and we end the bullying of marginalized communities.
Yeah. Yeah. So I changed my position from when I first joined. I definitely think 7 they should start learning. But it was a good talk.
Yep, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming up. Let's give, I think his name is Period. Let's give Period some W's in chat. And that's why, Peachy, that's why it's important. Normally when I'm live and I've got people waiting, normally I'll put a timer up. But with these debates, this is why it's so important that we hear them out and we try to come down and meet them at their level. And we have these debates, we have these topics.
Yeah, I agree. I think like people love to tell me when I used to do debates a lot, like people would tell me like, what's the point of this? Like, you're not changing anybody's mind, whatever. And like, I've had lots of conversations just like that one where they come in and most of the time it's a lack of knowing what we're referring to, and society kind of makes them defensive, and their automatic assumption is that we're like you said, trying to teach about sex at a young age or something like that. And so once, like, if you can have a civil conversation and just explain what we're actually talking about to them, a lot of times we get people that are like, yeah, that's reasonable. And like 1% at a time, we're making them realize like this is actually normal and fine and good for us. And like that's huge because those people vote. So
Yep, and just like this last guest, he's probably not gonna say he has been, but there's a lot of red pill YouTube channels out there where they give this false narrative that children are just gonna be confused. They're not gonna know. No, that's not the case. It's not the case at all. The only thing that might be confusing to them is not having the language or the knowledge, not the knowledge, the understanding of how to express themselves. That's the only thing that would be confusing, and this is what we are seeking to mitigate. I mean, real quick, Ghost Sands, thank you for the $5 super chat on YouTube. Can we respect my religion? We can talk about this without making someone else's belief seem lesser. Everyone's beliefs are equal. I agree, as long as our belief includes allowing people be who they are, and we're not trying to tell individuals who they can and can't be. And got another super chat from Adele. Adele, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Adele is a good friend of the channel, both her and her husband, good friends of the channel. And Adele says, hi friend, haven't caught you in a while. Just had a pride cake for my daughter. Happy Pride to everyone in our community. And Adele, happy Pride to you. Thank you for checking in. I appreciate it.
yeah, happy Pride. The respecting religion thing was confusing because I don't know. Did we disrespect somebody's religion? Like, I'm confused.
I don't think so. And I'm trying to bring up, Phil Walker. Did Phil Walker load up?
It doesn't look fully loaded yet to me.
Yeah, we'll see. They were in there for a little bit.
Yeah, they might be gone. They're not loading on my end.
Yeah, they're not loading on my end either. So we'll go ahead and give that a disconnect. But this is why it's important to teach this, is because people just don't know. It's because we've been raised in a society where we've been conditioned a certain way. And this is even with the transgender community. This is something, again, because of how I was raised, this is something that I'm still actively trying to deconstruct. And what I mean by that is, being a cisgendered person, I will always be deconstructing what it's like to be a transgendered person, because I can never understand what that's like. It's impossible for me to understand. And so it's something that I will spend forever deconstructing. And it's something that I'm happy to always be deconstructing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think, like, even when you're a part of a community, like, because we grew up in a cis heteronormative society, like being bisexual or any other part of this community, a lot of times you even still have some like internalized stuff to deconstruct because you were taught that stuff. Like, I was taught that stuff was like wrong as a kid. Even though my parents, like my mom, was pretty progressive in comparison to other parents, it still wasn't something that, like, it was still something where like made fun of people for being that, or like when I was in elementary school, or like we used gay as like a to call somebody like as an insult, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even like I had to learn to like deconstruct my own like my own weird like opinions about that stuff. And I still do. Like I catch myself, like it's always internal in my brain for the most part, but I will like have a weird thought and I catch it and I'm like, that's not correct. And then I like have to talk to myself about like why I thought that way or why that rubbed me the wrong way, and like really think about like where that came from and talk myself through it almost.
Yep. We do have some people over on Video Ninja. If you want to hop on over there to bring them over, I will need to